Welcome to this first video, which is going to be answering one of the questions that I've received frequently. The question is, how many articles are required? And before I answer that in depth, I want to point you to a couple resources because I think that if you're using the papers that are handed out in class, then that can be a really good way to find the information yourself and really have the sense of independence and have this way that you can find these answers yourself. So you don't have to rely upon your teacher or other classmates or things like that. You have the resources already available. So the first one that I'm going to use is going to be the paper that's titled Paper 2, Text-Based Research Paper Prompt. So this was the prompt that was distributed in class on February 21st. And then the second thing we're going to look at is the handout titled Week 7 Day 2, or WO7DO2, Paper 2 Documents. And this was distributed in class on March 7th. So let's take a look at those. And the thing is, you can find both of these on Blackboard as well as in the Living Reader. So I'm actually let's start out. I've already gone into the course documents, but let's see if I'm in Blackboard. I sign in and the class looks like this. I go to the course documents and then I go to midterm and unit 2. And then I can scroll down and I can find the document, Paper 2, Text-Based Research Paper Prompt. So it's there. That's where that is. It's going to look like this. And then also I'm going to show you where you can find that in the Living Reader. So if you're in the table of contents, you can scroll down. And one thing that's going to help is that remember, the documents from Unit 2 are going to be highlighted yellow. So that means that you can just look for the documents that are highlighted yellow, and one of those is going to be the prompt. So let's see. We've got, and remember, we know the date is going to be the 21st, so let's look. So here's the Paper 2 prompt. We can click on the link, and there it is. So let's look at this paper, this document, and see where we can find the relevant information. So if you want, take a moment and read over it. And you can see that the answer is given to you in these first two sentences, or the first couple sentences, where it says you are required to synthesize the information from at least 3 sources. 2 of these sources must be outside sources found using the library's databases. You may use readings discussed in class for support for your paper, but you will still need an additional 2 outside sources. Any information retrieved from the internet must be credible and appropriate as discussed in class. So right there we've got our information, but I want to show you another place, which is going to be from the document Week 7, Day 2, Paper 2 Documents. And again, that's also going to be on Blackboard, so you can find the document right there. It's also going to be in the Living Reader. So if we go to the table of contents, scroll down, and we can find let's see, where is it? It's actually, so what it's going to look like in the Living Readers, it's going to be this checklist. So I divided it up into the different parts in the Living Reader so that hopefully it's a little more natural of a connection, and you can look at the checklist, and the checklist is going to give you the information that you need. So take a moment, read through it. It's all important information. But the information that we're looking for right here is that you're going to need a minimum of 3 readings used throughout the paper with a minimum of 2 readings from library databases. no requirements for anthology readings. So if you've read that information and you're still a little unsure about how to answer this question, I'm going to explain it a little bit more so that you can really feel comfortable that you are meeting the article requirements for paper 2. So the first rule is there's a minimum of 3 articles total. So, and then that also includes a minimum of 2 articles from the library databases. So we had a library research day, and if you weren't there and you need to know the databases, then you can look in Blackboard, and here are the databases that we used in class on that day, on February 26th. So you can use those databases. Let's go back to those requirements. And then also, another thing to keep in mind that using class readings are okay, so like the Horovitz article, the Freeland article, and so using those class readings are okay so long as you're meeting the minimums mentioned before. And I also want to give you a little bit of information, a little insight. Maybe some of these rules seem a little arbitrary or complex or hard to follow. And I want to let you know there is a reason for these rules. So one of the reasons for these rules is that there's some flexibility to use information that fits your topic. An easier rule would just be 3 articles all from the databases. But we want to give you the flexibility to use the class readings, to use the articles that are going to be helpful. But at the same time, a skill that's really, really important is going to be developing the ability to use the databases or know how to get help when you're struggling with using the databases. So that's why we require those 2 articles from the databases, and so that you can have that practice. So I want to give a few different scenarios so that you can see, make sure that you kind of understand what the requirements are. Another thing I want to mention is there is no maximum on the articles. So if you want to have a lot of articles that you're referencing, that's okay. But the thing to keep in mind is this minimum. So let's think about if these different combinations of articles count. So if you have 2 articles from the databases and 1 article from class readings, does that count? Have you met the minimum? Take a moment and think about it. And the answer is yes, because you've met the minimum of 3 articles and you've met the minimum of 2 articles from the databases. Next, what if you use 3 articles from the databases and 0 articles from the class readings? Think about that. Yes, this does meet the requirements for articles that you're going to use in paper 2. Because remember, the minimum is 3 articles from the databases or 3 articles total and 2 articles from the databases. This meets both those requirements. You don't have to use class readings, but they're there if you need to use some of those ideas. What about 1 article from the databases and 2 articles from the class readings? Think about it. Does this meet the requirements? No, this does not. Even though this meets the requirement of being 3 articles, it doesn't meet the minimum of 1 article from the databases. So that's going to be, you have to keep that in mind, that you have to have at least those 2 articles from the databases. So because we want you to get that practice with being able to use the databases, with being able to find articles that are useful to you. How about 2 articles from the databases and 2 articles from class readings? Does this meet the requirements? Yes, it does, because you're meeting the minimum of 3 articles total and 2 articles from the databases. Remember, you can use more than the minimum. You just can't use less. All right, lastly, here's an ambitious student. They're using 5 articles from the databases and 3 articles from class readings. Does this meet the requirements? Yes, absolutely. They must have done a lot of reading, and that means that they're going to be having a lot of information and it meets the requirements. Because remember, the minimum is 3 articles. This is a total of 8 articles, so it's well above 3. And then they need to have 2 articles from the databases, and their 5 articles is well above those 2. So you can see that they have met the requirements. Another rule that you want to remember when you're writing your paper is a minimum of 2 articles referenced in each body paragraph. So that is not that means that it doesn't count if you just have 2 citations per paragraph, because what could happen is that you might have 2 citations from the same paper, and that's insufficient. You need to bring ideas from different authors together. And I've included some visuals in this slide to maybe kind of like sort of show the idea that we're trying to convey with this synthesis paper. So we're bringing ideas together from different sources to create kind of a better whole. So in that first picture, there's 3 like kind of brains being emptied into a funnel, and the idea is, 3 ideas from 3 different places can really, like if you're choosing the right ideas, they can be distilled into really a really nice, good idea. There's other visuals. I don't want to explain those too much, but I just want to impress upon you that with synthesis, the goal is to bring these ideas together. So that's why there is this minimum requirement of 2 citations from different articles, not just 2 citations from the same article. So another thing is that this synthesis is a model of academic writing. So it's articles that you've read, and so a lot of probably the academic articles bring ideas from a lot of different experts. And also this is going to be writing that you'll be expected to do. Sometimes you'll just be asked to reflect or write about one paper, but it happens a lot that you do have to bring in ideas from multiple sources and really show what a multifaceted understanding of a topic and what you know about the topic. So I hope that answers your questions about how many articles you're going to need in your paper. Thanks so much.